Alright, let's make sure everything is cool. Today's video is going to be more about psychology because feel like I've hashed out the math. You guys kind of heard me endlessly talk about rings. So today we're just going to really begin to bring it all together with some psychology. We're going to be tossing in Robert Morian concepts on psychology. If you haven't heard me talk about him yet, just videos are 10 minutes long. He's the guy who thought about energy and where it is coming from and with respect to the human psyche. He is what we like to call a classical Jungian. He's heavily inspired by Jung and the fact that there is a shadow side to the self that most psychoanalysts are frankly just not exploring or talking about. And this entire framework of mind, or what I like to call the range of cognition, this is the psyche dial. So when I start saying things like rings, your experience and your attention with respect to space and time is who you are, and that one of those angular dials or those rotations to who you are is in fact the framework of the psyche. This is what I'm talking about. Okay, so when I go back over to my equation and I start pointing at an exponential factor with respect to a complex figure with respect to time, this is what I'm talking about. This is what goes into the psychology angular dial, all right? This is a lens to look through. So for instance, in the same way we can look through a microscope lens or a telescope lens, we're essentially trying to get more observational knowledge with respect to the tools that we're using, with respect to what it is we're trying to observe. So one of those lenses that we humans like to use in order to process what we like to interpret as knowledge or data or truth or whatever the hell you want to call it in your monkey-like words at this point, that has to pass through a filter, what is known as what is called the psyche, okay? It's basically a framework of mind. So let's just start with really crude examples. We like to use modern updated object words. So for instance, autism, psychosis, insanity, normality, baseline, neurotypical, all of these are words and descriptors to describe physically and cognitively how we are to be handling an individual with respect to health, okay? What I'm really trying to hash out in the point of this project, when I start saying things like kill narcissism, is we don't need more updated 2025 or beyond words to just start describing psychological frameworks of mind that most of us have been dealing with since literal God-given creation, okay? These are not new concepts that the humans have been trying to work with since the humans have started, okay? And just because we have a lot of technology now doesn't mean we're in any way more equipped to handle the same problems that we have been trying to get a handle on since over 500,000 years ago at this point, okay? So this is really a wholesale effort to enter in what we like to call as Enlightenment Era 2.0. Let's get the ball rolling back with respect to technology, science, and order. How do we do that? Well, let's first start by understanding how this energy is manifested over the course of human history and over the course of just one subjective framework of mind, okay? So like I said, this is one of the rings that I've been trying to outline to one of you guys. And this is what goes into one of the rings. This is how you view the world. Oh, excuse me. So get used to trying to understand the world in rings. This is the psych portion. We haven't even gotten to like the sensory portion, which biomechanically speaking, like things like eyesight, hearing, tasting, these things that we initially categorized into five different senses. These are very sophisticated tools. Okay. And we really are, because of the way we are deciding to parse knowledge and language at this point, setting ourselves up for cognitive failure when it comes to trying to understand these concepts moving forward. Okay. So you need to understand that when it comes to making up psychological frameworks, when I start introducing things like complex figures, well, lo and behold, humanity can start giving itself complex goals. So, for instance, we like to think of Arnold Schwarzenegger as the guy who essentially came up with a dream and went for it, right? Or we like to think of all these success stories and, like, how did they do it? Well, listen to an Arnold Schwarzenegger success speech. He will vehemently and openly talk about all the social relationships that help him get there. He is not a one-man army. He had a vision and he went for it. This psychology part helps you talk about the vision and how he went for it. What Moore did was essentially establish four quadrants in which energy can manifest within the human psyche. So, for instance, it was his belief that wherever energy was manifesting with respect to the human psyche, this is exactly how we need to be behaving around it. A reflection of how we, observers on the outside, should be behaving around the energy because we know where it's manifesting. The way we know and can get a time frame or a reference frame of how and where the energy is manifesting, he believed that it was by breaking those parts of the psyche into what is called archetypical narratives of what the humans have been doing, essentially, again, since God-given creation. So if you start hearing things like, Catholic allegories or Christian allegories like the king is dead, long live the king, this is because these are narratives, and archetypical narratives at that as humans have been trying to tell over and over again with different flavors over time. I mean, I was just watching the story of Moses the other day on YouTube, and it's like you can't really get a modern story of Moses without it quite literally looking like the most fantastic superhero movie to date. You know what I'm saying? But what people kind of more or less whiff the ball on when it comes to Moses is if we were to kind of maybe paint it with respect to truth as close as we can get it. What if Moses really did have a set of beliefs and ideals that were just, non-Egyptian, however they were correct? You know what I'm saying? With respect to the integrity of where humanity should be going, Moses had a set of ideas that were beyond himself. And what he did was he essentially, and some other, I believe they're called Abrahamic prophets. And there was like 48 of them and 7 women. I don't know. He was revered to be the best one. And what if he essentially fled Egypt because it was so persecutory? Does that remind you of any nation states that we are in today? What if he fled that nation state with a set of ideas and a group of people who were all about those set of ideas, and the authoritarian ruler or the totalitarian tyrant chased after him? And then what happens as he gets to the Red Sea? The story is that it parts. What if the sea waxed and waned at this time of human history? It's just not catastrophically. We like to superimpose our understandings of the shorelines today over things that happened so long ago. Do you not understand just how much human pollution we've put ourselves on the shoreline since then? So we can't really get a good understanding of physical shorelines at this point. We can get a pretty broad and decent one, but we can't get an accurate one with respect to those times just because we haven't even begun to measure pollution correctly, in my mind. But if we keep, again, paying attention to the central story of Moses, what happened? He fled Egypt, set of ideas, he thought he was right. We don't know yet, right? This is the story. A bunch of people are going along with him, set of ideas. They're tired of getting stomped on too. They don't know what to believe, but they have faith. and they leave. They cross the Red Sea because there is an opening. Fuck, guys, Moses didn't go like this and it didn't part. All right, there was an opening because some waxing and waning. Who knows? But these are naturally explained events and phenomena. And as the story goes, he was able to cross. Now, as the story also goes, baby king decided to chase. Tyrant king decided to chase. In all of his hubris, this is where the story collapses into a singularity event of ideas. What if by some natural event, the king, in all of his hubris, thought he could just camp in the middle of the Red Sea overnight, or over a few days, or over a week or two, and the ocean eventually swept his army away? Sounds a little bit more monkey-like to me at that point, that someone of the most infinite amount of hubris with respect to Moses and the king who has the most power over the land could somehow think they could defy natural forces in order to get what they wanted. Sounding a little closer to what we know. Fast forward a couple thousand years. Let's replace Egypt with countries of, I don't know, who would you like? You know, we like to think just because we've come out with new words like ADHD, factor 1 psychopathy, cluster A, cluster B, narcissistic personality disorder, phone addiction personality disorder, marijuana addiction, it's just like these words are coming out of the woodworks, and they have been for centuries. Y'all need to start understanding that the thing you like to call consciousness, this loose, abstract framework of mind that we keep calling infinite for whatever reason, is quantifiable, and it has been. I've carved you out. Not only that, I am repeating concepts that essentially the Easterners have carved out since the 1600s. Man really is in gimbal lock with its own hubris at this point, and I'm not just talking about me, okay? I don't know what else there is to say other than I'm currently making a game out of all of this, as to really start demonstrating to the future of modern society at this point that where we are with our intentions right now, this is quite literally a canonical abomination of ideas. If you think that sitting on pensions or putting your head down and going to work and then just living out the rest of your days in some kind of blissful, alternative, capitalistic framework of society is the way forward for humanity, then you have sold yourself an interesting, mage-like fantasy, as Robert Moore would put it. More to come. Hope that all makes sense. Have a great day.